welcome to episode 4. I almost said episode 3.
4.
Episode 4 of the In Our Headspace podcast. And I'm just gonna be honest. I didn't do an intro at the beginning, so I'm recording it now. Not that far in, but I figured I'd still do the intro and I'll just throw this at the beginning. So this is from future us.
Hi.
But I don't really have anything else to say. I just thought I'd intro with the name and stuff. So
Good idea.
anyways, enjoy our conversation that we're about to have, and then it'll loop back around and catch up.
There's two guys. All two of them want to do jiu-jitsu, and I kind of do it too now.
Ooh, that's cool.
Like, I need to figure out. I could probably make it work. Just be a lot of time.
Yeah,
Because
it's the biggest thing is it's so expensive.
yeah, 85. I think.
It's not horrible if you're
I
doing
still-
it super consistently.
Yeah, like I
It
would
could be worth
definitely.
it.
I would definitely do it consistently.
Yeah.
But I was also going to ask them, like, do they do a student discount? I hope to God they would.
Dude, you saying that makes me think like maybe I should get back into martial arts.
Yeah, like,
Merely for the fact that I don't exercise.
yeah.
And so
I just don't know why it's so fucking expensive.
because it's a martial art, bro.
Yeah, like with Taekwondo, you're like, buy all this fucking gear so you could fucking get tapped in the chest. They're like 1 point, 2 point.
Oh yeah, no. See, that's the thing though. That's I think that was one of the biggest differences between WTF and ATA.
Yeah.
Was ATA was very Olympic.
Yep. Yeah. Very
and
sporty.
WTF
Very
was,
sporty.
Yes, sport oriented, and points and stuff. From my experience with ATA or with WTF, I didn't do it for like super long time. My experience was way more. It felt way more like focused on the self defense,
Yeah.
actual martial arts side, as opposed to when I went to Sean's classes twice. It was way more like sport oriented.
See, the only time it ever felt like, oh, that was fucking crazy. I for some reason I just sparred with our one of the instructors. His name is Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
He whipped my ass. This is cool though, because I was
Yeah.
I was kind of nervous. I'm like, oh, come on, man.
Yeah.
And I just know he did like a front leg kick and just like knocked me down immediately. I was like, oh, that was so fast.
Oh, Jesus.
Because like I'm literally like, I'm sitting there like, all right, time to take this guy down. He's an
Yeah.
old man. I
Yeah.
got this.
And then he.
Like I couldn't even see it. I was like, oh, I'm on the ground. I'm on the
And
ground.
that's the entire point. Is like the speed.
Yeah, like it was just really fun because I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that was cool. All the other times, like 2 point, 1 point.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the thing is like the only time we ever did that was for like our 5-minute sparring sessions, but it wasn't about the points. The only reason they did the points is so like we wouldn't be going all out and hurting each other. It was
Yeah.
like you just hit him in the chest. Like that's kind of the whole thing. And so, but the way we did it is we'd have like, I think like at most we'd have 10 people in our class.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'd have like 5 on one side, 5 on the other. And it would be like me and this other sweaty dude, right? And then we'd
Yeah.
be going. And then I go down, it was like me and this other kid. And then like
Oh, okay.
I would get to Shane. And then like, but by that time you're like fucking exhausted.
Yeah.
And like by the time you're at the end of the line, it's like, it's more about the exercise and the doing the thing rather than like scoring points.
Yeah.
And then we do like these exercises where we'd like do like high knees from like one corner to the other and then like go around, and then we'd have to do like roundhouse kick with our right leg, like, or not, well, they weren't roundhouse kicks, they're quick kicks where like you jump and do it, and then like we do that across, and then
Okay.
we go around, and then we do it with our left leg, and then it was way more like training based as opposed to like strategy, or well, it was not in that sense, like sporty.
Mhm.
Whereas with ATA, I think they do a good job of bringing beginners in. With like, obviously they have so many young students that like
Yeah.
they're familiar with taking people step by step.
Yeah.
But anyways,
I think martial arts is really fun, in my opinion.
I think it's something most people should do.
Yeah. Well, like, it's just so enjoyable because, like, especially, like, obviously, like, the first times you go there, it's going to be
Mhm.
weird because, like, I don't know these people.
Yeah.
But then once you know the people, it's so much more casual.
Oh, yeah.
And then you just get straight into it. Because, like, I was talking to Sean about it. And I didn't realize, like, I didn't know I did Taekwondo for 2 years. I didn't know that.
I don't ever remember. I just remember like, I think I knew you were in Taekwondo, like, and that's it. I never like saw you. I never
Sean has some of my
I've never
pictures.
seen you do Taekwondo.
Sean has
Jared.
my pictures when I got my black belt. I was like,
Really?
fuck, I look gay. My God, they're so bad. I was like, Jesus Christ, that's me.
That's
That's a
funny.
disgrace, is what that is. But yeah, so back to like because even with wrestling, you had to pay like a fee,
Mhm.
and it wasn't for gear. Like, kind of, it was. It was mainly like travel expense, basically taking a bus from
Well, yeah.
here to Fruitland or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's just like when I look at jujitsu, I'm just like, I'm showing up and like, yeah, like I'll buy a gi and then I'll buy your
Like the belt and
the
the
belt.
gi. Yeah.
I don't think jujitsu has that many belts, by the way. It's main like, I know there's a lot of degrees in the black belts.
I think they do
But then-
a different thing though. I don't think they give you a whole new belt each time.
Yeah, the stripes. They
yeah, they
striped
do the
it.
stripes.
Apparently the final one's like red after all the degrees of black.
Like black and red.
No, just a red
Oh,
belt.
it's just so red is final.
Which
That's
is
cool.
that's what Ishmael told me. And he said like this one guy got it after teaching it for like 40 years. He then got his red belt.
See, that's what I liked about WTF is like they the joke, because there was always like a little competition between the two.
Yeah.
The joke within was like ATA is just a belt factory. You just go. It's like school where like you do this lesson, you do the test, you get the belt.
Yeah.
Where like
That's exactly what
WTF
happened.
was like you had to do a form, but the form didn't decide if you got the belt. At least at our school, at least with our teacher, it wasn't like just knowing the form. It was like knowing the form and then demonstrating proper technique and like showing that you actually knew, you weren't just going through the motions. I never actually did a belt ceremony because I wasn't acknowledged ever by like the official
It's fucked up.
higher ups. Like the only person who really cared was my main instructor, who I
Yeah.
only saw like once or twice a week. And so like I never got a belt ceremony, so that's why I only ever have a white belt. But my teacher said like he even brought it up to the main guy and he's like, "Oh yeah, we'll get a belt ceremony going." And then like
Aww,
ghosted. And like
ghosted.
and same thing happened to Shane, and Shane got put off for an entire year.
I know Shane did it for a lot longer.
Shane did it for most of his childhood.
Yeah.
And then he when it came to like the actual time to do his black belt, they were like, "Oh, we're gonna have to put it off. We're gonna have to put it off." And they did that for a year straight. Then they were finally like, "Oh, okay." And then he did it, and then they said no. And like the worst part, he told me was that the main guy's son did the exact same thing he did, and he got his black belt, but Shane didn't.
Fucking bias and corruption.
Yep. So like that is something I will admit. Like that's what sucked about being such a small community, was like so much bias, and like it
This
was
was like
really
a
hard
shit
to get
community,
into.
honestly.
Yeah,
It's
it
like
was
a shit community.
it was hard to get into as a beginner. Going into like the big, and the main thing is like the main guy was starting up his CrossFit training school, and he had a lot more passion
Sounds
for
like
that.
a CrossFit guy.
Yeah. So he
CrossFit's bullshit. I shit you not.
is it a scam?
Yes, it's a fucking scam. If you watch people do CrossFit workouts, they're spazzing out. They're not
That's
like
so
I'm
funny.
by no means a physical therapist or like oh
a
yeah,
trainer.
a trainer or anything like that. But I could look and be like, that's not how you do a pull up, you fucking dumbass.
There's but the whole thing was like my instructor said if you had actually gotten a proper belt ceremony, he never held back from me learning new things, even though I wasn't technically the belt level to do it. He recognized when I had elevated to the next level, and he was like, you actually skipped from white to, I think it was white to green, so I skipped over yellow.
Yeah.
And then I went from yellow, and then I was learning the high tier blue belt stuff, because there's always, at least in our school, it was like blue and then blue with white stripe, I think it was, or something like that. And or blue with yellow stripe, or whatever it was. It was like tier 1, tier 2, and then you'd elevate to the next, and then it'd be tier 1, tier 2. And I was on the high end of blue belt.
I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, it was a weird system.
Yeah, because like I remember getting like, I think black electrical tape to signify the tiers.
Exactly. Yeah. So you'd get like white, and then I think it was white with yellow stripe.
Yeah, shit like that.
And then it was yellow, and then it was yellow with green, or yellow with blue stripe or something like that, or green. I don't remember what the order was, but essentially I was in like, he said I was high blue belt by the time I was done, but I had never gotten a belt ceremony. So like that's never recognized. And I think that's kind of one of the things that I had that's keeping me from going back, is like I would have to start all over unless they did some sort of screening to test me. But even then, by now, I'm like, I'd have to practice a lot before I got back into it. I'd have to stretch, essentially, is what I'd have to do.
Yeah.
But even since I stopped doing Taekwondo, and last time I did it was my freshman year. Yeah. So like, but the main thing is, I think I learned the most after I finished the class, because I kept doing it and I kept training on my own. And I'd practice around at my dad's house like every night, and like just like I wouldn't like spar, but like I would literally go. My sisters would make fun of me.
Oh, they don't know nothing. They don't know nothing.
Like in this open space by our dining room, and I would just like practice forms and kicks by myself.
The warrior.
In the complete silence. Like they'd be in the living room watching TV.
The warrior.
And I'm like, tss, tss, like doing that shit. And
they're like, you fucking weirdo.
Yeah, they're like, you're so dumb. The point of that is to say, like, I think I had a lot of improper training because I was in the advanced class when I shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
I learned directly from Shane. I learned directly from my instructor, who was the same belt level as Shane. And like, I did a lot of my own research and my own training. And like, that's why it's like, I'm in this weird spot where like, I feel like I don't even know if I'd get much out of going back to martial arts, like Taekwondo specifically, if I were to go back in, because I'd just be relearning stuff that I've learned before. I know enough to not be a beginner, and like, I'd say I'm like intermediate, but because of the fact that like I don't stretch every day anymore and I don't actively practice with my kicking bag anymore, it's like I'm out of practice, but I can still like, I still know enough to like get the value of self-defense.
Yeah.
Like I know how to fight somebody, even though I've technically never been in a fight, but which is iffy because it's like, you can't really know how to fight someone, but
it's also been a while.
Yeah. So it's like, it's a weird thing where I'm like, I'm tempted to, the only reason I'd really go back to martial arts is for the fitness routine, if anything.
Okay. I'm doing it mine just for, because it was fun in wrestling. It was fun to wrestle.
Yeah.
Although like sometimes competing would make me sick, like mentally.
Oh,
because I'm just like, failure is not an option. It's like, oh, I fucked up.
Was that a result of the way you were taught? Or
no, that was on my end. Like,
was it like a legacy thing? Not legacy but like
thing. It was just
expectations, I should say.
I just had it was completely all on me.
Okay, like within your own self.
It was all within myself.
I got it.
And I don't know, it's because like when I'm wrestling with people that have been doing it longer for me, I'm just like, for me, I'm just like, I got to play a catch-up game so I can get to them as fast as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And so here I am trying my hardest, and then I go compete like the next week, or the next weekend. I was like, oh, I lost. I was like, oh, it kind of put me in the shitter.
Yeah.
You try it again. It's like, oh, I lost again. Then I tried again.
It's
like,
hard when you're putting a lot of effort into it, and then you're like,
I think I definitely held myself back in terms of my mental health when it came time to compete. And even other people told me, I didn't know this. People were like, yeah, Jared, you always seem sick sometimes. I was like, oh shit, really?
Yeah.
I thought that was all a me thing.
Yeah.
But I guess other people could see it too, where I just like, rather than being like in a sponge-like state and being truly absorbing it all, I would just sit there and then kind of get in my head. It's like, fuck, shit.
Which is hard to do. It's funny. I've heard people say like in a competitive setting, you've got, my dad actually told me this. He taught me this because he learned this from his martial art school, Mind of No Mind, being like, if you think too much about something, you actually stunt your ability to do the thing.
Yeah.
And like, especially in fighting or wrestling or whatever, like you've got to be able to rely on your body and your mind and your instincts to do the things that you've taught yourself. Because if you teach yourself something, but then you're focusing on trying to remember the things you taught yourself, you're going to hold yourself back. But if you just let that flow and you let it you just let yourself react on your intellect, then or your intuition, I should say.
Yeah.
You will actually be able to accomplish the thing you've been training for. And that happens with so many competitors because you're just you're so focused on well, I've been training for this for months. I should be able to do this by now.
Yeah.
And then,
See,
you were saying.
Because what made it so sickening was it wasn't the fact that let's put it specifically, it was specifically failing is what I was trying to avoid.
Right.
It wasn't, and it wasn't that, because what was different about this failure, again, I had no expectations from anyone else because it was completely on me.
Mm-hmm.
And so it really came it's oh, my mom, my dad, they're disappointed that I didn't win.
Right.
It was completely on me, where this game genuinely all for me, where it's fuck, I really don't want to fail.
Yeah.
But that was a completely wrong mindset.
You want to strive for success, not avoid the failure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I should have done. But instead it was, I need to win.
Yes.
That's what the objective was.
Yes.
And that's what made it so sickly. And from the times where it wasn't so because I also had some good motivation sometimes, because from the coaches, they were fascinated. They're like, oh, Jared, you're really good. Stuff like that. And I think you were there for one of them. One of the coaches were it's you coming to Iowa for the summer?
Oh yeah, I was walking with you when he approached you or something like that.
That's when I decided to work for Shoe Carnival for that summer instead.
Yeah.
But
oh, what a great choice.
Yeah. Met David.
Yeah, I'm still friends with David.
I haven't talked.
I don't know if he listens. I know he sees that I post about our podcast. I don't know if he watches
those
it.
Guys, fuck those guys.
Milena likes our Instagram posts. She follows our Instagram page.
I think I saw that.
So if you're listening,
hi Milena.
Shout out, I guess.
I remember your mom or your grandma made burgers and brought them over when we were closing.
What?
Yep. And
I never got that.
And they were fucking great.
Oh my God. I worked there for 2 years. I don't get anything. I got some Mexican candy. That's the best I got.
That's fucked up, dude.
Actually, no. I think I got cookies or something one time. But
burger was fucking great.
Burgers?
I got a fucking
What the hell? Yeah. Anyways, about the whole failure thing.
Yes.
I think it's interesting because it's a very relatable thing for so many people.
Yeah, it's applicable to so much because, for example, someone in academics, high school, middle school, college, it's, you could apply, and again, even sports, anything you want.
I think we're so, at least in our culture, I don't know if it's specific to America, but I'm saying in American culture, at least, it could be other places, that you're taught that it's bad to fail.
Yeah.
You are almost always punished through your early years, at least in school, always punished for failing at something and not doing well. And you're never told oh, maybe it's just not something you're strong with. Don't beat yourself up. It's always everybody needs to perform highly at everything in order to pass. Yeah,
see, the issue with that for a lot of things in terms of failure, when you say it on paper or just say it, it's yeah, that's good advice.
Yeah.
But for a lot of scenarios, it seems like schooling, it's yeah, you can say, learn from the mistakes, the failures, the good, but it turns into an issue when the failure has negative consequences.
As negative consequences, and it's never learn from this. It's always well, you just answered this wrong.
Yeah.
Should have known it. And that's not helpful. It doesn't help anybody. But in reality, it's so important that if you fail at something, to be okay, what'd I do wrong? Even in school, you can have it so it's what'd I do wrong? Well, I didn't study enough and I didn't pay attention when the lesson was being taught. Well, why didn't I? Well, because my mind was on this other thing and I didn't get much sleep, so I wasn't able to focus very well, or I'm just in general not very good at focusing very well in that environment. So what should I do? Either study on my own time or talk to the teacher and see if they can maybe help. And if the teacher doesn't, then that's on the teacher. It's not on the student. But like, I think it's never put that way. It's never like, well, if you didn't do well on this test or you had problems with this lesson, like, think about what the problem was and try to come up with a solution. It's always like, well, you can't retake the test, you failed, or you can retake the test as many times until you get it right. So just memorize the answers, or you just failed and you have to deal with it. And let's hope you don't have consequences for bad grades. Because some people do, some people don't. And like, sometimes it's like, if you fail and you're never told, like, it's okay to fail.
Mm-hmm.
If you even see like a little glimpse of failure, if you even feel like, oh crap, I'm going to mess this up, that's going to make you way more scared to even try things or to even accept that you make mistakes. And that was a big thing for me, is like, making mistakes is hard and it sucks. But like, one thing, the biggest thing I feel like I've learned growing into a young adult is just own it, because nothing you say or do is going to change the past.
Yeah.
Like if you mess something up, an example, a really recent example, we're on a film shoot at work.
Yeah.
And I forgot to hit record. And the camera I was manning had 2 of the 3 mics plugged into it. So like, immediately I noticed that, and there were a couple reasons why. Like, I couldn't see, like, because I had a monitor, but the monitor didn't have the UI showing whether it was recording or not.
Okay.
I should have double checked anyways. That's on me. But that's the main reason why it slipped past me. But also, like, it was just, there's a couple, like, I confused myself on something. So it was like, but realizing that I hadn't been recording, it was like this wash of like guilt and shame and like panic and like, oh God, I didn't hit record. So I did it immediately and I was like on it the whole time. And then afterwards I had 2 choices. It was like, don't say anything and just act surprised when it comes to editing it, or just to own up to it and be like, hey, listen, I messed up. Yeah. I didn't hit record. We lost some footage, but we can make do with what we have. Like, it's still possible. Like,
okay.
And that's what I did, is I immediately went up to my boss. It feels weird calling him my boss. Because it doesn't feel like, anyways, it doesn't feel like the proper, like the normal employees. It's like a team thing. Anyways, we were both working on the shoot and I was like, here's the thing. I missed the first like 5 minutes. And he's like, shoot, that sucks. Crap. And I was like, I think we can pull the audio from the other mic and stuff. And he's like, okay, we just need to pay more attention to it. But thank you for owning up to it and like just telling me. And I was like, cool. You know, like that. I didn't get punished for messing up. I didn't get punished for making a mistake. I got told, okay, we need to pay more attention. Like, and that, here's the thing. No one's going to beat me up more than myself in that situation.
Yeah.
I don't need someone else telling me, oh, how dare you screw up, blah, blah, blah. And he knows that. And that's what makes, in my opinion, that's what makes a good leader, is like somewhat like, unless the person is like trying to play it off like, oh, it's no big deal, like stop worrying about it. Like, that's when it's like, you need to take it seriously. But
yeah,
in a situation where the person's clearly like feeling really guilty about the thing they did and they didn't feel good about messing up, or they failed at something, like you fail at a test and it's like, Dad, I failed this test. It's like, then the next step is like, okay, well, why'd you fail it? And even then, like, the kid's not going to feel like, oh, okay. Like, they're going to be like,
yeah.
Well, I played video games too much. Like, I didn't study, or I didn't pay attention in class, or anything like that. Like, anyways, I think the moral of that tangent was like, once you learn that to not be scared of failing at something, you're going to have a better time, like, learning, because as a wise, young, short, green creature once said, the greatest teacher failure is. And that's the best way, I think. Not saying that you should make people set people up for failure, but the best way for someone to learn is by messing up, because you're always going to remember if you messed up.
Yeah.
And like, I think one of my life mottos, I guess, is like, the best thing you can do in a bad situation is learn from it, whether it be caused by you or whether it be out of your control. Even if it's something that you have no control over and it's just a crappy situation and you're just like, cool, I got to deal with it. At least take something from it and be like, okay, well, now I know, at least in my future, I can choose to not make the same mistake this person made.
Yeah.
That caused this whole situation. Or I can preemptively prepare myself that, like, okay, this is going to be hard and I need to learn to deal with hard situations. Or that one's a little more cryptic, but in general, it's like the worst thing you can do is sit there and moan and be filled with self-pity. And there's time to grieve, and there's time to be upset. There's time to be in your emotions and feel your emotions and recognize your emotions. That time isn't forever. That time is short period during and after. And then at a certain point, it becomes your responsibility to pick yourself up and learn from it and move on, or learn from it and do something. So
yeah, well, that's the thing about it, because definitely the easier thing to do would to be have like a little pity party,
yes,
and divert responsibility.
Yes,
be like, oh,
that's
well,
a good way
like
to put it.
It wasn't fully my fault, or it wasn't my fault at all.
Yeah,
and you get variations of that,
and come up with justifying it.
Yeah, or excuses, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And like for me, like I know, like I can't really bullshit myself.
Yeah,
because again, like with the whole wrestling thing, like there's just like no room for bullshit.
Yeah,
and it's also sometimes annoying because sometimes people will be like, don't be too hard on yourself and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you
that
could say like
it's easier said than done.
Yeah,
for
it's like telling someone, hey, stop being sad. It's like, oh my god, thank you.
Oh wow, you know what? That's what I needed.
Yeah.
Thank you. Depression is cured.
And so, as you were saying earlier, what I believe in to be like the most constructive, because I sure as hell like fuck, I could never throw a pity party. Because like I know deep down inside, and this is for me, like one, I'm like, that's a bitch thing to do, and two, like I know I'm lying to myself.
Yes,
and I'm just like, and that's just something that I can't slide because it's just like what's the point? Like I know I'm lying to myself, like I'm deceiving myself.
Yeah, and yeah, and very small tangent. I think it's like people can get caught up in exactly what you're saying, where they're like, well, it only happened because of this. It was out of my control. I didn't do it. Like, and that's what you mean by like lying to yourself, is not like just making excuses to the point where you believe it. And then that bleeds into other aspects of your life. But
yeah, like what's also painful about that, like you could have someone try to critique that, but that person will not have any of it. They will be dead set on, it wasn't my fault.
Yeah.
It was not my fault.
They'll die on that hill.
They will die on that hill.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe they, at core, they genuinely believe that. But for me, no matter the situation, like I remember I got pissed off because I wrestled the number 1 seeded guy in my weight class that was supposed to win state.
Yeah.
And I was pissed after I lost.
Yeah.
Because one, this still goes back to like, I didn't want failure as an option, but I know for a lot of people, they could have shrugged it off and be like, dude, that's the number 1 seeded guy. Like, you shouldn't be too mad about it.
Don't beat yourself up. He beat everybody else, kind of thing.
Yeah. But for me, it was still, because, you know, there's extremes where it's like, oh, maybe you are being too hard on yourself. Like yeah. Because like, the thing is like, it's a gray zone, you know, like
you got to balance
no fine
it for
line.
Sure. Yeah.
Because there are certain situations where it's like, it was so absurd, you know, like the probability of that happening was single digit, maybe, like stuff like that.
Yeah.
And because that's one thing that I struggle with on the extreme side.
Mm-hmm.
If we were to view the person that does the excuse no matter what, the opposite of that would then be, no matter the circumstance or situation, you would always
try to take responsibility.
Yeah. Which at times, like for in my instance, that was a bad thing because it hindered my ability to learn because of how mentally ill I felt.
Yes.
Because then I would feel tired and I'm just like, fuck, I'm tired.
And then it hindered your ability to improve even further.
And then it made it harder to perform.
Yeah, exactly.
Which then made my goal of winning and not failing even harder.
Right.
And then it would snowball because then I'd fail again. It's like, fuck off.
It's that loop we talked about a couple episodes ago. Yeah.
I think the correct term for the stuff like that is called a positive feedback loop.
Yes, positive and negative. Yeah.
And so that's what I got trapped in until I honestly don't remember when I wasn't feeling like shit, if I'm being honest.
Wow.
I think it was like that the entire time.
Yeah.
But the times where I wasn't feeling like shit, it was fun.
Right.
But going back to, like, it would have been better for me if I could just be like, yeah, that was kind of ridiculous. A high expectation. Because I know, like, Jordan Peterson talks about it. Like, whenever you're trying to get out of a rut.
Yeah.
And you start setting goals for yourself, like, you don't want to set goals that are unobtainable.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Because then you're going to be left with, oh, fuck, I couldn't even do that.
Yeah.
And then you're going to go back to whatever you're doing before, not doing anything. And so starting out, you would want to do goals that you could actually achieve. Yes. So you could look at it and be like, hey, I actually did that, rather than setting some astronomically high expectation of yourself that you never end up achieving.
Right.
Kind of like some Chinese dude. Not Chinese, Asian. Like, when you, like, in order to move the mountain, you start off the rocks.
Yeah, for sure. And
it's like Lao Tzu or something. I don't know.
You got to, like, and that's exactly like what you were saying about the positive feedback loop. You've got to give yourself these moments of these small victories, because one of the biggest motivators and confidence boosts is achieving something. But if you're like, well, I'll never achieve my main goal. And it's like, well, you've got to step each step. You can't just, a perfect example is like this podcast. I would have never started it if I released episode 0 or whatever and was like, what the heck? We only got 30 views.
Yeah.
We've only got 5 subscribers. Like, I'm going to quit. For me, it was like,
yeah.
I went into it knowing that I wasn't going for numbers,
but that's a beauty of not having the expectation and still just doing your best.
Yes.
It's like, who knows where this will lead us?
Yeah. And like with our YouTube channel, should I voice it? I've never advertised our YouTube channel because I'm like,
shit.
Okay, it's iCall, IKOL. It might not even. It probably won't show. There's so many accounts on YouTube.
Best goddamn playthroughs on the platform.
No, our best one I think was Little Nightmares. If you search iCall Little Nightmares, that might show up. I don't know. Shameless plug. I haven't posted on that thing in like 7 months. But main thing is, like, we recorded so much footage before we actually released an episode. A, because we were trying to get the feel for it, and B, it was like, I'm not happy with this. I'm not happy with this. I'm not happy with this. Mics sound awful, like blah, blah, blah. And then finally I was like, just release something. Like, it's not going to, like, achieving the first goal of, like, doing the first episode actually gives so much confidence and motivation to be like, oh, sweet, I'm doing the next episode. And then the next one. And it's like, that's where the positive feedback loop helps, because it's like, it continually keeps you moving. But it can turn into a negative feedback loop if you set those expectations for yourself where you're like, well, I didn't hit this goal, so I kind of failed. And then it's like, I didn't beat this person. I didn't get this many views. I didn't get this many likes. Like, the thing is you did the thing. You didn't do that last week. So, like, be proud of yourself that you even put the effort and took what was in your head and made it into a thing that other people can see. And that's how I feel about the podcast right now. Is it's actually interesting hearing people's feedback, because I'm getting some feedback now from like family members, and it's like they're my family, so it's going to be positive, and I really, really appreciate that. And like, it's cool because they'll give
love your grandpa's message.
Yeah, my grandpa.
I loved that message.
Shout out to my grandpa. He says he's my biggest fan. Love you, grandpa. But the detail in which they'll reply is like they actually like listened and understood, and now it got them thinking. And I think it's really a really cool feeling. But the other thing is like I'm kind of bracing myself for like when we start reaching more out with like random people.
Yeah.
And we start getting the negative feedback. And I think the key is like listen and accept the negativity, but don't let it control your decisions.
Yeah.
But same with the positivity. Listen, accept, appreciate the positive feedback, but also don't let that affect your ego or your like let it affect your confidence, not your ego. And same with the negativity, let it affect your humility, but not your confidence. And it's just interesting because it's a balance that's so hard. And there's so many examples of people on YouTube and people on social media going into something with their only living example being Jake Paul or Logan Paul, who got instant fame for no reason. And then
dude, we're living in a crazy world for that stuff right now.
Yeah, like what is it, virality or something?
Yeah, like even so, see, I don't know the intended, or I don't know the consequences. What's going to, like, I'll say what I'm like.
Yeah.
For a lot of attractive girls, so many of them are making OnlyFans, selling their nudes and whatnot.
Right.
And honestly, at first glance, I think that's so mighty appealing. Like if you're good looking and you don't have to work a job that pays hourly wage, and you can make a shit ton of money off people doing monthly subscriptions.
Because people find you attractive. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that seems like a good fucking offer up front.
Yeah.
Because you get to do it on your own time. You get to do it in your home. You don't have to leave your fucking home.
Yeah.
You like social media probably already.
Right.
And so it's like, oh, who cares? And next thing you know, you get a following,
and it's on your own terms. I think that's the biggest thing is like these people are doing these more expose, like being more open with their private life, but it's on their own terms. And that's kind of the opposite of the controversial side of like porn, where it's like it's such a hard industry that people do like really awful things just to try to make a living, where it's like, I guess technically on this end it's way more on people's terms.
Yeah.
But that they jump into it not understanding the consequences of
that's
everybody seeing you.
That's what I'm just like,
horrible mental health problems there.
Yeah, I'm just curious where it's going to lead in the end, because maybe it is self-sustaining and they could keep like that for the rest of their lives. Maybe they save enough money and they don't have to work a normal job.
Yeah, see if they're smart with it. Yeah.
Because I remember I saw a post and this one dude was talking about how, I think it was him or someone he knew, like they were getting bullied because their sister had an OnlyFans and they were making like, that's when I say that, I'm like, oh, that's kind of weird. Like,
yeah,
that's like, really weird when it's like,
it sucks when that's the other thing you got to consider is like the consequences that your life choices have on people around you. And you shouldn't always have to worry about that, but like specifically your family.
Yeah.
And not to say like, obviously she's just doing her own thing and these people reacted a certain way, but at the same time, it's like, it comes back to that balance of you gotta like, I don't know how to even word this.
Like, honestly, what I think. So, what's interesting, like, so when my uncle's gay, one of them are, and this was during the time when he was in high school, or if you said you're gay, you get beat up.
Right. Yeah.
Completely different now.
Oh yeah.
But,
for the better.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the thing. Like, so like during that time, the whole social normality was like, oh, being gay is weird. You get beat up for it. It's just weird. It's dirty. It's weird.
Yeah, exactly.
And what if we're kind of switching to, you know, seeing people naked, selling your nudes, whatever?
That's becoming the normality.
That's going to become a more normality, because, you know, you and I probably feel the same, where it's like, oh, if I knew, like, see, like this, like, I'll say this and we'll think it's gross.
Right.
Like, if our moms had their own nude thing.
Yeah.
I was like, fuck.
I don't want to know about that.
I don't want to know. Like, and I would feel weird inside. You know what I mean? Like, it's a
knowing that so many people are seeing it.
Yeah, it's a genuine weird thing inside where it's like
uncomfort. Yeah,
uncomfort. That's what it is. It'd be uncomfortable. And so I wonder if that's just, you know, that's just how we kind of grew up in a sense, where it's like, oh, that's weird. And
yeah,
I wonder if it'll transition into, oh no, that's normal now.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we're seeing online around this whole topic is. People are like, well, don't shame her for making her own life choices. It shouldn't matter to you. And she's just being open with her body and she can do what she wants. And yes, that is very true. That is all power to those people. It's just a matter of you got to, like, I don't know, if, like you were saying, if it was my mom, I'd just be like, change your name. not like your legal name, but like your screen name or whatever. Or like, I just don't want to hear about it. Thank you. Like, I don't know. There's no real way around it is the thing. Like, it's either like your stance could be, I'm all for it, I don't care, or like, it makes me kind of uncomfortable. But then the argument to that is, well, it's not about you. It's like, yeah, but I can still express my opinion.
And see, this gets into, like, what you would call it, etiquette, our morals, more like our feelings. You know what I mean? Because like, if you want to be like, oh, lawfully they're not doing anything wrong type of deal, right? But when you start getting to like an ethical thing where it's like, oh, you know, that seems kind of wrong to me, and that's when you could get into gray zone. And as you just stated, some arguments where it's like, oh, she's human too.
I think honestly, both sides are justified. And that's what makes it so hard, and that's what so many controversies are. Is like, both people have valid points most of the time, to where it's like there's no real point in arguing about it, because it's like people just need to look out for themselves. Yeah,
because it gets into one of those things. It's like, is there really a one right answer? It's like,
because it's like, here's the thing. We'll go back to your comparison to the social transformation into accepting LGBTQ plus stuff. Like, that I'd say that's a much different story, because people were getting treated poorly and differently because of something that they felt, not they felt, but something that was their lifestyle, like their life, not lifestyle, like the way they lived their life angered other people for some reason. And the way that, just like, the main point was like, I'm doing my thing. I love what I love. It doesn't affect you. Why do you care? Well, I care because I was told it was wrong. It's like, okay, well, you can deal with that in your own head. Like, I'm just a person, you know? Like, that's all it came down to. But comparing it to this, which is more of like the age-old controversy of just porn in general. Like, if someone goes into porn, they're usually highly criticized, but the defense is like, I don't have a problem with not selling your body, but like showing my body off. And that's just my lifestyle. And like, people will say their words, but at the end of the day, it's like, this person is using the tools that they were given in their life to do whatever they want with. And they have every right to do that. But at the same time, that person should at least understand that, like, that's weird to some people, or like it specifically. And I should specify specifically, the people close to that person are affected in ways that maybe you wouldn't foresee, such as being bullied.
Yeah, like that would that would suck. If, like, sucks for that kid, like his sister's selling her nudes, and you know, you could do this argument where it's like, oh, thanks for the money, but at the cost of like, oh, I'm being shamed. Here's now the thing. For my sisters. You're going to get
shamed and you're going to get bullied, and
they'll probably try to show you too.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you can't, the problem is like, the person in that situation doesn't have any control. They can't say anything, do anything. And at that rate, it's like maybe the sister or brother or like whoever's in the situation who's selling their nudes or whatever, like maybe that person, I think it's on them to make the decision of like, okay, maybe what I'm doing is causing problems. Maybe I wait until he's out of high school or wait till this whole thing dies down and stop doing it for a while and change it up. That way it's not affecting this person as much.
What I find interesting about it is what, like, there's a whole, like, it seems like slut shaming is becoming a really bad thing now.
Yes.
Where you criticize someone's, particularly females, because I don't think guys really give a shit, honestly. It seems like a female thing, mostly.
Based on the fact that usually women are the sexual figures in our culture right now.
Yep.
Yes.
Well, because, like, so what's interesting, so, like, again, it seems like, quote unquote, slut shaming is becoming a negative thing.
Yes.
Maybe back then it was more socially acceptable, but I'd say certainly now, at least from what I've seen, it's not. But in America.
Yeah. I think criticism in general is.
Yeah, like, what's so interesting, though, is also at the same time, like, it also other girls, though, will also slut shame, quote unquote, their own kind, the same gender,
or even just people in the same situation doing the same thing.
Yeah, and it's just like, what a weird scenario to be in is how I view it.
Yeah,
it's just
that's what makes it such a interesting topic.
Yeah,
like, it doesn't feel like there's a right or wrong.
Yeah, like, it's just another gray area because, again, you could have one girl that's completely okay with it,
yeah,
and then have another girl that's like, oh no, that's not okay.
Yeah,
and it's just like, well,
it's just beliefs at that point, and it's so many things in our society are that way. Like, here's the thing: it's not a gray area when it comes to people are being assholes and bullying other people because of their life decisions. That's not the gray area. The gray area is, well, this person's justified in doing whatever they want with their life, but this other person is also being negatively affected by that choice. So now it's like, where does the morality fall? Does it fall on the person doing the things causing the problems, or does it fall on the person that, like, well, it's their problem, the other person doesn't have any direct effect?
So this is all me thinking in my head. This isn't, I'm not a psychologist or anything, or a sociologist that went and did some, like, surveys or whatever, did some sort of, like, case study. This is just what I think.
Right. Based on your own life experiences and stuff.
This is just my thought process of how things could be in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so this is going, like, a lot of girls are making a shit ton of, like, even before OnlyFans got popularized.
Yes.
A lot of girl figures were making so much money off of Instagram advertising, like, a ridiculous amount of money.
Yes.
And
because their target demographic is easily accessible on these platforms.
Yeah, well, like, it's so crazy how diversified the demographic could be, because one could be showing off product for fucking makeup, which would be targeted to girls, and then the other would be something towards guys, where it's like, oh, that's fucking hot, and give you a view or whatever.
Yes.
And so it's just very diversified and can target a huge variety of people.
Mm-hmm.
But what I just find interesting, and this could be of the times changing now, although I'll critique this later.
Yeah.
Basically, and I'm not trying to seem like a sexist person here, by the way.
Yeah.
The stereotypical thing would be, oh, the guy makes the money, the girl's kind of the support.
Yeah, the gender role. Yeah.
Yeah, going like nuclear family, whatever you want to call it. Although
I forgot about that. Forgot about that term.
Although that's being challenged heavily here.
Yeah.
But even so, there's like huge arguments where it's like, maybe like girls don't want to go into these fields and they want to do other things. I'm not there to argue. I'm just talking about how
the stereotype is male is breadwinner, woman is housewife.
Yeah, and like, because I know people have talked about there were, guys excel at that. They want to go out, they want to work longer hours and stuff like that. Whereas girls, they're like, oh, I'd rather do something with the family.
Right.
And now there's obviously going to be girls that's like, oh no, I want to make money, and there's going to be guys that would do the opposite. Right. It's more of like an overarching theme. Mm-hmm. And that's obviously being heavily challenged, at least here in America. I think like the Nordic countries also heavily challenged that.
It's being, and I think the main thing is, and you saying that sparked this in me. I was talking with, I think I was talking with my coworker about this. It's challenging because it's a very real thing, the societal norm of guys just have to suck it up and they don't show their emotion. That is a very strong thing in our culture.
I certainly fall in that category, I'll say that.
And I was sort of influenced that way when I was younger, but I never actually I think I had enough around me, enough emotional support around me that I never fell into that role. And that's partially why I feel like I'm able to speak openly about my anxiety and stuff like that. Is my emotional openness is because I was raised in a specific way, but I've definitely felt the pressures of not showing affection or emotion. And I think the point of me saying this that relates to what you're saying about the gender roles is the guys are more quote unquote willing to put their head down and do all the work and just ignore the pain because they've been taught to ignore the pain.
Yeah.
Where if guys were more taught to be more in tune with their emotion and how to express their emotion and how to feel things and things like that, they would be just as likely as the females to be like, I want to spend time with my family. I don't want to go out and work my ass off for 60 hours a week. It's just, and not that there's anything inherently wrong with doing that thing if you're truly wanting to do that and passionate about it, because some people are workhorses. Some people get so much value from feeling that accomplished, and
that's
it's
how they flourish.
Yeah, and that's how I learned that lesson, that I'm not one of those, but I worked around a lot of people that were, and I know a couple people that are, and it's it's cool. But the thing is, the point is to play to your strengths and know what's healthy for you, because if you're an emotional guy, but being an emotional guy is stereotyped in two ways, either being weak or, quite frankly, you tend to be lumped in with being a stereotype of a homosexual. I'm sorry. That came out wrong. Anyways, it's very often associated with being gay or homosexual.
Being frowned upon. Just being frowned upon.
There's negative stigma around it. In general, there's negative stigma around showing your emotion because it shows weakness.
Yeah. And
in the American household, the guy is supposed to be the rock, the stable one, the one that's all the power, the safety, the defense. Yeah. It's supposed to be all these things. And yes, you can be that, but you can also show that that's a scary role to be in. That's hard. That's a lot of stress. You're allowed to feel stress as a guy. It's all these things, and there's so many things that stem off from that, and there's so many things that stem from a woman being unable to show power because to guys that's unattractive or whatever, even though it's not, to so many people. And I think and that's why we're becoming so, like you're saying, we're kind of moving away from that, and we're moving on as a society to be more, I guess, open in general. Everybody is it's a positive change, but it's also going to be an interesting growing pain.
I think a lot of weird things are going on, and probably weird things are always going on, and things are always changing. This is just what we're currently aware of. I'm sure weird social changes were going, back in Sam Witch trials, oh, we're not allowed to burn people type of deal. Oh, we're not allowed to kill witches. Yeah. That's probably a weird phase they're going through. It's we just can't kill people now.
Yeah.
And so this is still going back to the gender thing. So this is back to where the guy's the figurehead of the house, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do then? Let's just say your girlfriend, she's the OnlyFans person making astronomical money.
Mm-hmm.
It's roles based kind of flipped. because she's basically kind of running her own business now at this point.
Yeah.
Where you're most likely on some hourly wage type of deal.
Right.
And so I'm just like, and it's not like it's not like for a guy, for example, like let's just say middle class, maybe even high, like it's not that at 18, 19, 20, 21, you're immediately in this high salary position or whatever.
Yeah.
You'd usually take time to build up to get
a
good paying job.
Yeah.
But with these girls now, it's like instant over the week. It's like, oh, all these people are subscribed to me. It's a monthly payment.
Yes.
And it's like, and next thing you know, it's like, oh, I have thousands upon thousands of people that are doing like the bare minimum of 5. Some of them are doing 10 and they get more benefits. Some of them are 20 that get the most. And
you have this whole tiered system. We're talking once again about OnlyFans / selling your nude pictures or whatever.
Yeah. Like, and again, that's a shit ton of money.
Yes.
Over that time period, and then you keep that constant for however long. That's a lot of money, and it's just interesting to see, quote, like the role basically immediately switched.
Role reversal, yeah.
A role reversal in a sense where she's the one making all the money, and then I wonder what that does, like psychologically, to both parties here, the girl and the guy, where it's just like, I wonder what the girl thinks, and I wonder what the guy thinks. It's like, what's going on here?
Then all of a sudden the guy could feel like his masculinity is challenged or whatever, and the girl could be like, could feel like her, she now has all this power she didn't have before, or however you want to look at it. Like, the thing I want to kind of talk about is how being in a position of people basically paying you for attention, and paying you to look at your body, the effect that can have on the person doing it. At first, it's like, cool, this is quick, easy money, and I'm confident in my body, and I don't have a problem with other people seeing me. But then eventually,
maybe your family even supports it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And like, you're in a positive feedback loop. And then all of a sudden things get toxic and people start demanding things of you and people start objectifying you and people start being just people that eventually happen. Like, it happens everywhere in any industry, any entertainment industry, because I'd consider that part of the entertainment industry, as far as like similarities go. And your audience is eventually going to be like, well, I want more. Like getting really weird, creepy, like, and then you feel pressured, and then like you're in this awkward position because like maybe you don't want to do it anymore. Too bad. A, that's going to live on the internet forever, and B, it's not going to be easy to deal with these people who are so obsessed. And I think that's where my kind of, I don't have a problem with it, but like that's where my opinion lies. I get that people want to express themselves and they want to have the choice, and it's like almost exercising their ability to do what they want with their life. I understand that aspect of it, and people who are like, well, you shouldn't be able to make that decision, like, are wrong. Like, that person gets to make whatever decision they want. My thing is like, I feel like as far as like looking in the future for yourself, is that the best path to go on in the long term? Because you could set up a lot of problems for yourself in the long term if that's where your identity is. Like, now there are some people who have a previously established identity as a content creator that then be like, well, now I also do an OnlyFans if you want a little more, like, which is fine.
Yeah, there's also non-sexual OnlyFans.
True.
Where it's just like paid content, where it's like, oh, you just have to come over to pay
essentially
for it.
Patreon.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, but it's just, I don't know. It's an interesting, because it is interesting that that's new, and that's like a new platform that has arisen in like recent months.
Like I'd say certainly pop, because like before it was really porn stars, the type of thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden it's anyone with a fucking camera on their phone. You know what I mean?
Okay, so I see what you're saying now about it being like a normalized thing.
Yeah, like I think it's going to be
5 years ago, even like 2 years ago, that would have been like crazy. And now it's like, hey, I have an OnlyFans, check it out. And it's like, okay.
Yeah, like,
and I see what you mean now. Like, and that's not necessarily a negative thing. It's just an evolution.
Yeah, like what's also interesting in terms of us, like in terms of information, you know, I would say probably a lot of people, like, I don't know if America, like, I would say overall, probably, even though we got a lot of fat people here, I know that. I would assume in first world countries, they're going to have probably more attractive people because they're going to be definitely focusing on taking care of their body more often, because this gets back into the whole stereotypical like Instagram thing where it's like, look at all these people with these gorgeous bodies.
Unrealistic expectations, the toxicity that comes with that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think achieving those bodies is just going to become quote unquote more accessible for a lot of people. Because it's like, oh, you know, work out, follow this nutritional plan.
Yeah.
Like, here are the building blocks to get to it, stuff like that. And, you know, all of a sudden you have an increased supply of people that have better bodies. Like, you have way more hot people than you typically did like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And then next, you know, like if we go another 10 years, maybe we have even more people that have hot bodies, and then they're just like, hey, I'm going to sell my nudes too and make all this honestly, fucking money.
Like, if it leads to a healthier society.
Well, like, see, this is where I get this. So this is where I'll critique it. Cause like, you know, it would be weird if it turns into this whole, like, the girl's the one making all this money doing this stuff. And the guy's
if gender roles reversed. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, cause I'm sure there's a lot of people with the OnlyFans where it's like, oh, I do make more money than my boyfriend now, because of how many people are subscribed to it.
For sure. Yeah.
My critique now would be like, it's the same way in the colleges. Like, let's just say you're going to college and you're with your professor and you're like, I want to be a professor too.
Yeah.
And let's just say the professor has 10 students and all those 10 students are like, oh my God, I got to be a professor.
Yeah.
So all 10 of them become students. And then they're like, then all those 10 professors have their 10 students.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, well, then those 10 students want to be a professor like him. And now those 10 students from the 10 professors want to be like him. Like,
it just goes.
It will keep going. It's like, oh, next thing you know, you're going to want to be a professor, but you're not going to have any students.
Right.
It's going to grow and it won't be able to support itself. It's like, okay, great, you're a professor. Like, there's nothing. There's nothing to give.
It's exactly the idea of a oversaturated market. Like,
yeah.
Same with I'd say same with Twitch streamers, same with gamers on YouTube nowadays. Like, they're like, oh, I want to do that, and then they do it. And look at me over here with the YouTube gaming channel. I don't really do it much, but the point is, you got so many people trying to do the thing that they're going to be less focused on being a viewer and more on being a creator, and then less viewers, therefore making the market crash.
It's just not sustainable. You can't have that. And
I think any sort of entertainment that relies on instant gratification, and I would lump that in with like porn is instant gratification.
Yeah.
Obviously this, like, when it comes to the 18 plus stuff, that's very instant gratification oriented. And once the person gets their fill, here's the thing. Especially sexually, there are people, most of the people on the internet are like, cool, I got my satisfaction out of this, I'm done. And like, that's not a big deal if you have like new people coming in all the time, but eventually it's going to be like, I'm done. Same exact thing happens with porn, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously I haven't looked on any studies, but like, pretty sure that's what makes it such a competitive market, is like, it's so like reliant on that. And I don't think we're necessarily making the claim that people are doing it for a sustainable job, but like, in general, if that is what we move towards.
Well, it's certainly a good immediate, like, it's like that's the most money you're probably going to get. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Unless you're some dude that's going to be like, yeah, I'm going to cure cancer and monopolize it, or some girl. Like, other than that, this is probably your best thing to make all this money instant, like really fast.
Very quickly, yeah. Especially if you already have a following.
Yeah, and so that's just my critique now. Like let's just say this does keep continuing and is popular. You're going to have so many people then that are going to be so hot and so similar. It's like, why should I subscribe to you when you're like this?
Yeah.
Or when this other person's
then
like
it would
you.
Evolve, and then
you get this huge pool of diversity where there's so many people. And next thing you know, someone that is really hot, they're like, oh, I'm not making any money.
Yeah. And then it'll shift.
Kind of like, I know some people joke about this, where like every person you bump into in like California and Los Angeles, like it's like a girl, it's like, oh, I do modeling, I'm a model.
Yeah, everybody's a model.
Yeah, and it's like, yeah, I'm a model. I live with like kind of like my sugar daddy, and I share a bed with another girl that's only a twin size bed, and there's both of us on it.
Oh God.
And our room's really messy. We have to spend hundreds of like, you see what I'm getting here?
Yeah.
Like it's like, oh, you're a model, but there's so many of you. It's kind of unsustainable. Like,
yeah.
I mean, look, you're sharing, and the story I actually said was from someone on a YouTube video I heard about, where he was hooking up with this girl, and he went back to her place, which is actually the sugar daddy's place.
It's like a mansion?
No. Small house, where she actually did share a twin bed with this other girl that was the sugar daddy, that was also quote unquote model.
Yeah.
Where like the sugar daddy would spend money on them for their makeup so they keep looking pretty.
I actually watched this documentary that talked about a very similar situation to that. It was about specific it's gonna sound funny. It's specifically about porn stars and the porn industry. But the reason I watched it is because it was like it's just interesting because no one talks about it. And so when you see what goes on behind the scenes, it's like really messed up. Because it's so like exactly that. It's almost like I don't even know the word. I
wonder
for
if the equivalent is like, because back then, before YouTube and like before songs could be distributed like that, like for records, didn't the record companies take like a shit ton of money from the producer of the songs?
Oh yeah,
because they're like, oh yeah, we're the ones that are shipping it out. We're the ones
selling the physical copies would cost them so much.
Yeah. Well, like now all of a sudden, you have YouTube, and it's like, oh, there's a platform to support me. And digital downloads.
Everyone's got an MP3 player in their pocket now.
And so, like, we saw that market change to, you didn't need a third party really anymore to help distribute. You could just go on a platform.
Direct to customers, yeah.
And so you could do it yourself. You could do it yourself is the point. And, kind of like back to the porn star thing. It's like, oh, you got to go through some company. Like, it's like,
you got to go through an agent, and then you got to go get signed.
Yeah. And then you get some contract where I remember I watched a video where like some dude calculate, like, because Mia Khalifa was complaining or some shit, and some dude calculated like how much money she made after like each cock she sucked.
Oh God,
I don't know, I'll be graphic. I think it was decent money, but it's like,
it's not. I wouldn't say it's worth it, and I think that's
like
what I
kind of worked out for her because she's like social. She's got a social presence, definitely.
Oh yeah. Well, she used her platform and kind of transformed.
Yes, that's the important part.
What she's doing. But anyways,
anyway, like this is going back to the OnlyFans now compared to the music industry. It's like, oh, you don't need that third party. You don't need to go somewhere and sign a contract.
You don't need a publisher or distributor or anything.
Yeah, it's just straight up. Hey, you do it kind of like how now people, as you were saying, got the MP3 player. You just upload it to YouTube, SoundCloud, whatever.
Like us, we don't have a contract. We're just doing our thing and throwing it out on the internet.
It's great.
Yeah, talking about OnlyFans for like 30 minutes, but
great conversation.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say it was an interesting, kind of an interesting like critique, because it's not even like about the people doing it. It's like just about the concept of like where it could lead.
And that's why I say, like, again, I'm just, and it's like, to make it more complicated, we'll have people that will have good consequences that come from it.
Yeah.
We'll have people that have negative consequences from it. And then we'll have people that was just like a middle ground. It's like, wasn't great, it wasn't bad,
it paid itself off.
Yeah,
I got some profit, and then that was it.
Like, so there's going to be a lot of different avenues, but I'm sure there will be like an overarching theme where like most people would fall under.
I don't think it's quite blown up yet because I don't think a big enough person has done it yet.
Yeah.
But I think once a big enough person, like a big, like legit celebrity, not an internet celebrity, like an actual celebrity dives in, it's going to be like...
I saw some...
Oh, no, it was... there was one, Bella Thorne.
That's what I was going to talk...
Yeah.
I think she had a scandal or something, though, right?
No,
it was a scandal?
She was overcharging. I guess you could put it based on the market. Apparently, it wasn't even actually anything worth the money, quote unquote, according to all of these Reddit users, likely guys with neck beards in their mom's basement. But anyways, she made like $2 billion overnight because she's Bella Thorne, and people are like, "Oh, nudes!" Like, that's the thing. It's like you could have two different arguments of like, well, she's just doing whatever she can to make it, and then it's like, yeah, you're also preying on a very specific demographic of lonely people.
Like, isn't this getting weird now? Where like any girl, but Bella Thorne, to be fair, had a following to begin with. Well, you could take almost like any girl, it would seem, and just be like, "Hey, you want all this fucking money? Here you go."
Yep,
it's for me.
Hey, horny dudes, want to pay me $2 billion?
And like, it's funny because it's proof like it worked.
Girls.
That's the funny thing. It's proof that it worked.
Yeah.
And it's just like, for me at least, if you wanted to like think about it kind of logically, like why not do it at this point? You know what I like?
Yeah. That's everyone's argument. Like, hey, it's working.
Yeah, because like if the benefit of the money outweighs whatever social pressure you feel, then you're going to do it.
Especially if you can just do it and dip out. Like, that's the thing though. Is like, it's so purely like, I think the controversy is what the content is. It's literally like, you use your body and people will pay for it. And if you don't have an ideal body according to the social stigma or social norm, then you're not going to make as much money. And I think that's where like a lot of damage can come, is people can get even more self-conscious, and then it loops back into what we were saying before, because this has been a problem for years with
like a beauty standard,
sexual industries.
A beauty standard, they're setting a beauty standard, quote unquote.
Yeah, and then it's like, oh, well, you're not pretty enough, they're going to give all their money to the pretty girl. Then it's like, ooh, like, I don't know.
See, because I want, like, are we going to shift into a thing where it's like everyone has to be beautiful, so it turns into like a social norm where like everyone works out?
I think we actually passed that in the 2000s. I mean, not that we were like necessarily old enough to really observe it, but looking back on it, it seemed like it's way more important people to look good. And now we're moving into this where it's like, embrace yourself,
That's true.
Like who you are, love yourself, like. That's kind of the direction I see it going.
I'll say, like, based on just looking at older people, like my parents' graduation pictures, like if I compare that to like ours today, I would definitely say ours have way hotter people, if I'm being blunt.
But that's because they're a lot more confident in. Here's the thing. I think the thing that makes people attractive is the fact they're confident in the way they look, and they know how to present themselves.
See, that's like
in terms of, here we go, tying it back, playing to their strengths, if you will.
See, dude, I take a picture of myself, it's like, man, what a dumbass.
Of yourself?
Yeah. Dude, the only pictures I have on my phone is they're not good.
The thing is, we're dudes, so we don't know what makes a dude attractive.
Well, it's just funny seeing what we call a skill gap.
Yeah.
Because
there's a lot less information on what makes a guy attractive, in my opinion. Because the world is so focused on what makes a girl attractive.
That's so true, but also, we got to watch Red Son at some point.
Yes.
Because, again, Lois Lane talks about it in that movie. And she's like, oh.
It delves into this?
She roughly talked about it, because.
She all talks about OnlyFans?
Yeah, well, she was, I won't spoil it, like, she was talking to someone.
Yeah.
And she just said, oh, girls have to look like this, and that. And then she's like, guys can be short, tall, bald, fat.
That's so true.
Well, like,
oh my God.
Because then, so this goes back to like lectures that I've heard from, it's like, parts that are also important to a guy aren't necessarily so physical compared to women. Like for
girls look at more than just the physical side of men. And I'd say men look at more than the physical side of girls, but I'm saying like in the sexualization of women that we have here, at least in America, I would say it's definitely in other places in the world as well. But speaking for my own country here, within our culture, women are extremely sexualized, and people in general, like our culture in general, is extremely sexualized. Guys too. But the thing is like, you could ask a woman why she finds a dude attractive, and you could get a wild card answer. Like, you don't know. Most of the time you're like, oh, okay, like that's cool that you insane? Think deeper about that. But then like you can see like an old balding fat dude. Okay, not to say there's anything bad with that, but that's generally the stereotype for not attractive here in America.
Like, and in a physical term. Yes. Because like we get into, as we're now talking about like confidence, maybe he's funny. Because there's plenty of fat people where it's like, she's like, oh, I love him, he's so funny. Or
he's got a really good personality. He's got that like too. Here's the thing. I said that in a very negative way. I didn't mean to say that. But
like I think what you're trying to say is like a guy can be below subpar in the physical aspect.
Yes.
But then in what would you even call like as you were saying, like the emotional aspect, maybe?
Emotional and social, I'd say are two big factors.
What's the word here I'm trying to social class.
Yes.
Like a guy for girls could be way hotter based on it's like, oh, this guy's rich, he has money, higher social class. Because I think it's Jordan Peterson, many people actually talk about it, where like girls with higher education, they like it when the guy has like the same or even a higher education type of deal.
Yeah.
Because they're
intellect
wanting
and things like that.
Yeah, because like it's so crazy that they're just more focused on like kind of like this achievement, going back to like a social class type of deal. They want someone that's higher. I'm not trying to like shit on them and say gold digger, because for
that can be a genuinely attractive thing to people. And and the other thing is, I think it's just interesting because guys eventually, like, and the thing is you tend to trust, usually the older a guy gets, you tend to trust his opinion more than a younger guy, because I think it's a maturity thing, in my opinion, where younger men and younger women, yes, but I think it fizzles out faster because women have so many experiences where it's like these dudes are just bad people.
Like, as you were saying, maturity, immature, like, it's a stereotypical thing where like an older guy likes to get with a younger girl.
Right. But here's the thing. I think the reason the younger girl likes to go with the older guy is because he seems like a more stable, mature person.
Yeah. Which you'd hope,
you'd hope so by that point. Time. There's definitely exceptions. But like the other thing is, guys, I'd say, tend to objectify women. They're more likely to do it at a younger age, or depending on how they're raised, older. But usually younger guys are more like, I think that's why it's such a thing where it's like, oh, she's got to be hot. She's got to be hot. And then you see like people in their later 20s, after they've kind of gotten through their puberty, being like, I don't care how she looks. I want her to be a confident, smart, stable woman. Like, and then all of a sudden it's like, it changes. And it's like, guys aren't looking for just looks unless they're immature. And I think that's what it all boils down to, is life experience. And it's hard for everybody when you're young. It really is. And some people get lucky and they find the right person early. But like, I don't know. All this to say, like, I don't even know. I don't even know the moral of the story today. It's just,
well, here. Mostly, I was wanting to wrap it up.
Okay.
See, like, I want to take it.
It's definitely a longer one.
I'm kind of tired. I still got shit to do.
Yes.
I need to take a piss. But I think a good way, again, what I said earlier when we were talking, to wrap it up nicely, as Yoda said.
Yes.
It's like, we're luminous beings, not this crude matter.
Yes.
Remember that.
Dude, that's 2 Yoda quotes for today.
I know.
We can't help but talk about Star Wars, I swear.
It's too good.
Anyways, I guess we'll wrap it up. It's been about an hour and a half, or an hour and like 10 or 15 minutes. So.
This is a good episode.
Yeah, this was a very like talkative episode.
Dude, on my drive here, I was like, shit, I don't know what the fuck to talk about. I had nothing to talk about.
We never go into this really knowing. We just have one thing we start off with.
Dude, every time I drive here, there's always something back of my head. I'm like, oh, this one's not going to go too well because I got nothing to say.
Yeah.
But here we are.
Here we are.
Talking my ass off.
To say. So, anyways, if you enjoyed, I don't know, should I tell them to hit the like button for the first time ever?
Yeah.
Nah, don't do it. Don't hit the like button.
I don't think we should ever say that.
Nah.
It's like, yeah.
Never mind.
That's not us. That's not us.
Don't hit the like button. Anyways,
dislike it.
We have hit the dislike button. We have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the social medias. Just search our name. And the other thing is, I think starting next episode, I want to do it on a milestone. I want to do it on episode 5.
All right, we could do something special.
Well, the special thing is going to be we're moving to, not moving, but we're also going to now be available, hopefully, fingers crossed if I can figure it out, on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and like an actual format where people can just listen in their car or on a walk or something.
I'm thinking far out here. Like this is kind of get like, so back to milestones and like little specials, like we do something fun on Halloween.
Yes.
But then like next thing you know, it's like, oh, it's Thanksgiving. You do something fun on Thanksgiving.
We're going to do holiday stuff.
Yeah. And then like next thing you know, that goes into Christmas and we do a little Christmas thing. Yes. And then that goes into the New Year's thing.
New Year's.
I don't
know. That'd be fun.
I think it sounds pretty fun here in the future.
We got some, not necessarily concrete plans, but we have ideas. And anyways, yeah. That's going to wrap it up. Look forward to the future of our podcast, and like, I'm excited to get on Spotify. I've heard from a couple people saying like, well, if it was on a more accessible platform where I could actually listen to it or download it and listen to it, it'll be way more easier to set aside the time for it. Because currently we're only on YouTube. But anyways, follow on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook, or all three, because I post every time there's a new episode. I post a little snippet from the episode and stuff like that. So anyways, that'll do it. You got any final words?
No, the Yoda quote was supposed to be my final words. That's supposed to be my final words.
I'll just cut out everything you say.
There you go.
Okay. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.